Good morning, real life traders. Good morning, everyone out there on YouTube. Happy Friday. Let's see, we got Jay in the house, Ron, Franco, Al. Good morning. Oh, I gotta turn this down. I gotta mute the on YouTube. Happy Friday. There we go. Muted. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great morning. Happy Friday. Let's see. Could be an interesting day in the market. Let's just make sure everyone can see my screen. Give me a 1 if you can see the my screen that has the broader markets there. Hector, good morning. Rock, cool. Tony, thank you. All right, so looks like we're gonna be looking at a gap up. I mean, assuming, and I don't have any reason to think that this won't hold. I mean, it's, we have another half hour to go before the market opens, but this is looking like a pretty nice move. Let us expand this a little bit. Let's look at first the S&P. So, I said, if you recall, back when we made this move here, I said, don't be surprised if we pull back to this trend line, right? So this purple line here is that trend line that has been holding for, let me go out a little bit further. There we go. I mean, I can go out even further. There we go. So you get a really good look at it. That trend line has been holding, right? So when a trend line gets broken, it needs to break through that trend line, and then you can expect a retracement, and then the trend line's got to hold. So previous resistance should become support if the technical analysis applies. And so far it is working. But I did say when we made this move here, and then we started, might even talked about this here on the MACD, this crossover, that don't be surprised if we pull back down into the trend line here. And what's nice is that if you look here, we have some major moving averages here. We have the 200 here, we have the 100 here, and so the retest doesn't have to come all the way down to that trend line. It just needs to get into a zone that is close to that trend line, and that's exactly what we've done. And nice candle yesterday, right here. Pretty close to the trend line, but right off of the, looks like we got this bounce off of the 200 and the 100 here. And now we've got this nice move that we are making so far this morning. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. So no need to zoom out. It's going to be the same look as what we just had with the S&P, but here's this trend line. And again, do not be surprised, especially here with this, we talked about this double top when it was happening. You've got this crossover here on the MACD. I mean, all the indications were, okay, pullback, right? But this is a pretty good example here of where, if this does bounce out of here, where the pullback, the retest doesn't have to come all the way down into the trend line. You just know that once that trend line gets broken, and it got broken right here. I mean, this move right here was definitely the break of that trend line. But now the trend line has to provide support. And we have all these nice moving averages here that are also helping 200, the 50, the 100. Nice bounce right here off of the 200 and the 50 yesterday. And again, we're gapping up. So on both of them right now, we are gapping. We have a bullish candle yesterday, gapping up. I know you all know it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Throw it in the chat. Bullish candle yesterday, gapping up. What do we got? What kind of gap? Retest gap. Boom. Brian's got it. Brian, you get the gold star for the morning. Yep. Chuck, retest gap. So, and we are gapping. Also, just pay attention. We're gapping right into these moving averages. So here's the, this is the 10 on the daily. We have the 50 right here on the daily. We have the 10 on the daily and the 20. So, and there also is the 20 up here too. So we are gapping into some moving averages. So you just want to be aware of that when you do have a gap, you want to be paying attention to, are we gapping to a target, right? Because oftentimes when you gap to a target, then price just tends to just hang out and kind of go sideways or chop around. But looking like a nice gap. Let's take a look at, I'm going to clean up a little stuff here. Give me a second. Let's take a look at some individual tickers. Change my share. Okay, should be looking at Meta now. Meta on, I've got a 3-minute chart up and a daily chart. So on Meta, I mean, this is looking like a pretty decent move so far. I mean, and look at the pre-market, right? I mean, boom. I mean, it's making a nice move. Higher highs, higher lows. We are, what you want to be aware of if you are looking at possibly trading Meta, right? The levels you want to pay attention to on this are, of course, we have the high from yesterday, which is here. But right now, we've gapped. If this holds, we're gapping above this candle right here, which would be a nice gap, right? So again, it's a retest gap. But when you think about retest gap, so I'm going to ask the question, right? If it gapped right into, I'll take a look at AI. Let's say if it was gapping right here, right? If it was gapping right in here, would that be as good as a gap as if it gapped up here? What do you think? No, definitely not, right? Because it's not clearing a pivot. But if we do gap above this red line, this candle, think about and look back at this candle here, right? Here was the double top. If we gap above that, think about the sentiment of that gap. Yes, it's a retest gap. You can expect it to retest, but everyone here is trapped. Everyone right here on this wick right here who was selling is trapped. Everyone here is trapped. So that's how, when you're looking at gaps, how you analyze them and you try to come up with some type of a grade. At least I do. I try to, rate them in terms of the quality of the gap, and gapping above both all these wicks is a really nice gap. So what I would be looking for on Meta is a retracement, a retest of that level. So this line right here could even come a little bit lower. I'm going to leave that line in place. I might just drop another line in here right about there, right? So, and coincidentally, I wasn't, I was looking over here when I dropped that line in, and what I was looking at was the low of this candle, right? Low of this one, the top of the body of this candle, the bottom of the body of this candle, just kind of looking left through that area. And that's where how I just randomly dropped that line in there. But if you check it out, I mean, that line is pretty much where this pre-market point of control is. So if I was going to be looking to take a trade on Meta, I'm looking for a pullback into this area, because realistically, the wicks aren't as strong of a resistance as the bodies. So I would be looking for some type of retest down into this area and then look to take it. But the targets that you want to have on, be looking at is, certainly this is the next level right here, this line, and then this line. Okay. So Meta was one that I was looking at. Let me look at, somebody had asked for AI. Let's take a look at AI. Yeah, AI looks pretty good. I'm curious. I know a lot of you are pretty intimate with the tickers on the funded account. Is AI one of those tickers? I don't want to go over to my funded account, take time away from this, but if somebody knows if AI is in the funded account. No, it's not. Okay, I didn't think so. But let's take a look. Where are we gapping? Let's look at a couple levels. Okay. So we are gapping right now. We've gapped up to this level here. We got there pre-market. There's got to be, what is the news on? Oh, it's an earnings play, right? Earnings came out yesterday after market close. Okay, so that's what's going on here. Now, keep in mind, right? And I think it was DJ Dan who pointed this out, that it just seems that lately that all these big moves that are being made we're seeing them being made pre-market, and then the market opens and it just then is kind of flat. This is a pretty big move, pre-market, right? A lot of people made money here. Now we came up, we double topped here, and now we pulled back down. So just be aware, if you're looking to play AI, yes, we are. It's a nice gap. Let's see. Let me see something real quick. Give me a second. I'm going to check out my gap list. AI, for whatever reason, is not on my gap list. I don't know why it wouldn't meet my criteria. For some reason, it doesn't meet the criteria of my so not on my gap up list. Does anybody know if you have it, just again, so I don't take time? I'm curious what the percentage gap is right now on AI. Ron, do I play the pre-market? Sometimes. But Ron, typically, like when I say pre-market, like I will have orders. I will have orders in that will trigger pre-market in terms of buy and sell order. Like if I'm trying to get into a trade or trying to exit a trade, I do set up my my targets, right? So if target for a buy or target for a sell, whatever it is, I will set those up so that they will fill pre-market. Okay, thanks, Jay. So 16.9%. That's the other thing to consider, right? That's a massive gap. Where's it going to go at that point? I mean, it's trade your plan, but for me, I'm not looking to trade something that's gapping over 12%. It's just, you know, at that point, it's already made its move. And that's, be curious to see how this plays out during the day, because clearly this made its move pre-market, and you can see a lot of people made money. So at 16.9%, how much farther is it going to go, right? You have to realize that you are asking that stock to do a lot in order to, you know, go beyond that. So just keep that in mind if you're looking to play AI. All right, let's go through our standard tickers that we look at. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, we have gotten above the high from yesterday, pre-market wise. So I've got the lines marked out here between the with the orange lines, the high and the low. Again, we'll be looking at, if we open above yesterday's candle, again, we'll be looking at a retest gap, right? Of course, because yesterday was a bullish candle, but really nice candle. Look at that candle. Let me take off the news just so we, nice candle, bullish engulfing candle. Okay. And it's a bullish engulfing candle off of a pullback. So even nicer. But what I would have liked, I mean, if I were looking at, you know, like, so for instance, when I'm looking at swing trades, Chuck, yeah, I did look at I looked at the, for all intents and purposes, yes, looked at the Qs. We looked at the S&P and we looked at the NASDAQ. We'll take another look at the broader markets just before market open. But, you know, in terms of like, for instance, like swing trades, right? If you were going to look to take a swing trade here, I would like to see more of a pullback before I see a bullish engulfing candle, because yes, it's a really nice candle. Bullish engulfing is always a nice play if you're looking at you know, day trade, swing trade. It's definitely is a reversal signal, but it's occurring pretty much. I mean, it really didn't pull back that far, right? If, let's say, if it was a steeper pullback and it came back down here double bottom, and then I saw a bullish engulfing candle, I would be much more excited about that. But we'll see where NVIDIA goes. I mean, it's been strong. I mean, that was a nice move yesterday, right? I mean, definitely strong candle. We'll keep an eye on the market, see if the markets can break through those moving averages that we talked about. But if you are going to get into NVIDIA, right? I mean, just keep in mind this level here, right? That would be certainly my target. So again, I never target the actual high. I want to step in front of it because, you know, everybody's looking at this high. And I'm curious, the high of this one, 2388, high of this, 2380, pretty close, right? But, you know, everybody is eyeing that high. So if I'm going to get into NVIDIA, I'm going to be looking at a target that is going to be in front of where I know most of the orders are going to be. Most of the orders are going to be right at the high here, right? People are going to expect it to go up there, double top and get rejected, but I'm going to try to step in front if I get into something here. So I'm going to leave that line on there as a potential target for NVIDIA. Tesla. So Tesla, we had a gap down yesterday. Some buying definitely came in, decent volume. Let's see, RSI, right? RSI is back into that middle range where we want to be. So that could be an area where, we could bounce, but we're kind of just hanging out in nowhere land right here, right? We're kind of right in between these moving averages. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let me just see. And this candle here kind of closed that gap, but I mean, really, we do have a little ways to go. If this gap right here is going to get closed, we do have a little bit of way to go. But Tesla is at this point, pre-market is looking at a potential gap up. So let's see, got my lines marked out, high and the low from pre-market. But if you look at it, it's pretty much just going sideways, right? It made its move, and now it's moving sideways. So just bear that in mind. In that, if you get into Tesla, right, I'm going to want to see the markets helping it move in the direction, whichever market, whatever direction the markets pick. But right now we've got some sideways action here pre-market. Whereas if you look at some of the other tickers that we've already looked at, they're much more of a bullish move. Let's take a look at Amazon. Right. So Amazon, daily picture. I thought I had adjusted all these lines. Give me a second. So green lines, high and low of the previous day's candle. Orange lines are the pre-market high and low. Yeah. And so, here's a good example of Amazon, right? So Amazon, not a lot of, this is early in the morning, not a ton of volume, but came down here, threw in this nice hammer, right? Really nice hammer. And look at that move, right? So that's a pretty strong move there. That's, I like in terms of the overall look. Had a hammer candle yesterday, decent volume. Let me see. I've got the, must have just, clearly I just, some of the lines on this chart, I guess I just didn't do the high and the low from yesterday. So anyway, looking at a gap up, right? So we're going to be seeing a lot of retest gaps this morning. But I do like this move. That's showing me some strength pre-market. I mean, that's showing me, compared to Tesla, which we just looked at, that is showing me more of a move in terms of direction than Tesla. Again, Tesla was just kind of showing a lot of sideways action. We'll just keep in mind that we have, if we look at something here, we do have these moving averages, which would certainly be a target. I would also be looking probably somewhere, I would have this line on here as well, just as a potential area, right, where it might get rejected if it moves up to there. Let's see, Shane's asking Netflix. So shooting star-ish candle yesterday in pre-market. It's gapping pretty far up the wick. What are your thoughts on that? Let me go to Netflix. I had Netflix open earlier, and I don't remember being too wowed with it, but let's go back and check it out. All right, so Shane. Yeah, Chuck, I'll do that in a second. So Shane, Netflix, right? So yeah, you're kind of, so now keep in mind, right? Shooting star. When you say, shooting star, is this really a shooting star, right? Here on the daily, right? That's shooting star takes place at the top of the move, right? There's a shooting star. Top of the move, you get this high upper wick. This candle right there is an inverted hammer, right? So inverted hammer at the bottom of a move is actually a potential reversal, right? So it's holding its level. So this is a potential reversal signal here. So yeah, if it's, but again, it would be a retest gap, okay? And your gap, the other thing, Shane, I really want you to pay attention to is look at this, right? There's almost no volume, right? Compared, look at the, look at the difference pre-market between that and Amazon, right? This looks like an intraday chart. This move, all these candles, this price action, that looks like you're already in intraday. Go back to Netflix. And, yeah, there's some posts, some prints, but there's not a lot of volume. And if you look at this, 4,400 shares there, 922 there, 4,400. So, it's not as when I'm looking at something that's moving pre-market, I want to see some decent volume pre-market, and ideally I want to see it, like I already mentioned, looking like an intraday chart. So Chuck, can you define retest in retest gap? Yeah, so the retest is just simply, the retest is caused by profit taking and by panic selling, depending on which way it's gapping, right? So the retest, let's see if we can, okay. We zoom in here, right? This candle here. So retest, right? Green candle gapping up. It gaps up, people are profitable, right? So when people are profitable, a lot of people will just take their profit. So they're selling. That selling generates the wick, right? And this is not a great example because that's a pretty big wick compared to what I would like. Here's a retest, right? I mean, this was a gap. This was a gap and go. But the lower part of that wick is the retest. Let me see if I can come up with a better. Okay. Candle gapping down, right? Candle gapping down, buying, right? People are profitable, buying creates that wick. Reversely, conversely, if you're getting a retest gap that's gapping up, that lower wick is selling, people likely profit takers, right? This buying here, because if you're going short, you have to buy to close. That buying is, again, likely profit taking. Thanks for good deal. And when saying nobody's trapped, yeah, when I'm not sure what the nobody's trapped. Yeah, so Chuck, yeah, so gap and go, people are trapped, right? It's going the opposite. Like, think about right here, Chuck. See this red candle here? Like, people were going short here. And look at the volume, right? That's a lot of volume. Look at that volume spike here. Always look left. Look at that volume. That volume, the last time you had that much volume was back here. So a lot of bearish volume here on this candle. And then what happened? So there's a lot of people short there. And then what happens? Gap up, and then boom, everyone here that went short, all this, they're now trapped. And so if you're trapped, right, if it goes against you, you have to, if you're short, you have to buy to close. Or if you're long, you have to sell. And yeah, so the bullish, the gap and go is a trapping candle. Let's see, we have 6 more minutes. Let's get through a couple more of these. AMD. And I'll take a look at VMW in a second. So AMD, a lot of moving averages. I mean, again, I know sometimes when you look at the screen, it looks like, wow, there's a lot going on. There's really not. These are just my lines that I want to be reference lines that I need to know where these moving averages are. And we have a lot in and around the price action from yesterday's candle. So nice candle yesterday, right? You got this engulfing candle here, big candle. We currently, price action is below yesterday's. Where are my orange lines? Sorry, my orange lines, I guess I didn't update those. Let me pull this down. I'll leave that one there, and this one. All right. So AMD, we are not above the yesterday's candle yet. I mean, that was a big candle yesterday. So we are not gapping up. Oh, thanks. Al saying PMI at 945. Good to know. So we're not gapping up on AMD. It's going to, looks like we're going to be opening inside yesterday's candle. So again, just be patient with anything that opens an inside day candle. Expect some chop. You also have these major moving averages. You have the, here's the 50 on the weekly just overhead right here. Then you got a little bit of room. Well, quite a bit of room. I mean, here, this is the monthly 20 up here. So we would, you'd have to look at your risk reward if you're going to look to get into a trade here, because you definitely would want to target this weekly 50 if you get into something. Let's see, what was that? VMW. Let's take a look at VMW. All right, VMware. Okay. So yeah, VMware, we are getting a gap up. Let's see if there's any news. All right, so it is a so there's the catalyst there is earnings. We have it down here. So you do have a catalyst behind it, which is always nice. So when I'm looking at a gap, I always like to kind of know, well, why is it gapping? What's the reason behind that gap? So I look for some type of catalyst. Now, again, back to what I'm looking for here is, again, I look at that and I go, not a lot of volume, right? So yeah, I'll take, Apple's next on the list. But I look here and I go, okay, again, this is like spotty, right? There's not a lot of volume going on here. So I don't even know where VMware will open. I mean, it may not gap at all because of the, there's just the lack of volume pre-market. So, again, out like one of my, again, my scanner, right? So I've got a pre-market gap scanner. It needs one of my qualifications. It needs to have a minimum of 10,000 shares traded pre-market, and and so we're just looking at not a ton. Again, this is the pre-market right here, right? This is aftermarket. This is pre-market. There's really nothing. There's not much at all in terms of volume, right? I mean, like, look at that big candle right there was 700 shares. Right. So just be aware of that. Look at, what is that? Because again, Al, when you're trying to, there's going to be so many gaps every day, right? When you have to then narrow them down in terms of the quality of those gaps. And one of those ways to do it is to look at that volume pre-market. All right, let's go to Apple. Apple was one I was curious. I wanted to ask, does everyone see this wick right here on Apple? It's showing up here on Thinkorswim, but I'm curious if it's out there on TradingView or any of the other. It's just a odd, just kind of massive wick. It is. Okay, thanks, Carrie. Yeah, so in terms of the, for me, okay, thanks, Greg. For me, when I look at something like that and I'm trying to identify pre-market highs and lows, right? I mean, I'm not going to throw my pre-market low all the way down here. I mean, that's just one print that was, 4,400 shares, right? So who knows if that was just something that had to get settled from overnight? I don't know, but I would be looking more at, I have my line right now drawn right here for my pre-market because it came up here, big bearish candle, and it held and then it moved away from it. So I've got my pre-market low that I'm keeping an eye on right down here. In terms of the gap, let's look at this, zoom in a little bit on the daily. All right, we got 1 minute. Just be lots of moving averages here. All right, there's the open. Lots of moving averages. And look, so here's a great example. We gapped right to these moving averages. All right, so gapping to a target already. Just keep that in mind. So what I would be looking for on Apple at this point is, since we did gap right to these moving averages, let me pull back a little bit here. And again, it's a retest gap, so you know it needs to retest. It's going to come back down. Let it come back down, find a place to find some support, and then look for the move north. All right, I have to say goodbye to everybody out there on YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Again, as always, would love to have you come over to reallifetrading.com, join the community, trade with us. We do this every single day, except for the weekends. But all right, let me end that live stream.